bringing you in-depth discussion from one of the rad groups of online writers covering the Edmonton Oilers. Are you ready for Oilers Overtime? Join us as we talk news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and more. All featured on one of the most glorified teams in the NHL. From the great one to the next one. From the boys on the bus to the decade of darkness. This is Oilers Overtime.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of THW Oilers Overtime. My name is Jim Parsons. I am here with the Hockey Writers. We've got everybody with us this week, coming off of a very ugly loss for the Edmonton Oilers. So this should be a lot of fun to kick things off. Colton Pankey's with us. Colton, how are you?
I'm good, Jim. Like you said, an ugly loss, but they've been playing a bit better lately, so life's pretty good.
Yeah, I guess you can't go, what? Well, how many got there? Like 38-0? That's what they would have been under Jay Woodcroft, right? So I suppose you can't really do that. So they got to have a loss every once in a while. And a stinker, I suppose, is not bad because it kicks you in the butt a little bit, right? Coming off or coming into some tough games. Brian Swain is with us as well. Brian, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. The old journalist in me just loves this team because you know what? Good or bad, there is never a dull moment. There's always so much to talk about. And so I know we're going to get into it. Yeah,
if they lose like 4-2 and it's really boring, there's not a whole lot to talk about, is there? But yeah, so we'll get into the details of the big loss. Julian Mongilo is with us as well. Julian, how are you?
I'm doing good. Ready to overreact about one game over the last 5 that they played really well. So let's get into it.
Okay. Well, is it really an overreaction though? Because that was pretty bad. Like, especially the first period. Like, holy, I mean, the rest of the game wasn't wonderful, although the Oilers did outshoot them and stuff. It's just that the chances they gave away. I mean, who do you blame? Mike Smith gets pulled. I think it was 4 goals, and then he gets pulled, and then Mikko Koskinen comes in and lets in 3 more. I mean, I don't know I don't know if you can blame the goalies on that one. It's just an ugly, ugly thing. Julian, I'll start with you. I mean, what did you make of the loss? Was it just 20 minutes of really bad hockey? Was it 60 minutes? Was it everybody being tired? Like, what happened?
Well, I'm sure tired, like the conditioning kind of played a role in it because they played, I think it was 5 games in 7 nights or something like that. So I'm sure that kind of had a factor. They're probably a little gassed. And I just thought that from the start, they came off like the slow Oilers team we were seeing before they made the coaching change. And it was very like, I guess, almost reverting back to their old ways and how they defended and invited pressure toward their goalie, a lot of slot chances. And that just kind of snowballed. Like everything was coming right down the middle. And I don't blame Smith for not being able to stop anything because those were point blank chances. So I just think the defending was a little bit rough that game and it kind of just snowballed into something more. But I mean, the game was bound to happen just because of how good they were playing as of late. And I was expecting it to come. So I wasn't overly surprised. And I think it's a good wake up call, like you already touched on.
Yeah, I had a giggle because I was watching the game, which is giggle, a good word for me to use if I'm a 46-year-old man. I was laughing because my wife walked into the room where I was watching the game, and I think it was like, 8 minutes in, 9 minutes in, it's like 3-0. And she's like, how are they playing? And I'm just like,
not now.
Not now. Out. You know what I mean? She's like, yeah, I'm not going to hang out in here with him for a while. So yeah, it wasn't pretty to start the game. But like you said, I mean, it's just one of those things. Maybe you need it. Brian, is this the kick in the pants that they need going into 3 games against teams that they probably should lose to be totally honest, right? These are 3 of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, and we aren't giving them much of a shot here. But if you have motivation and you have an embarrassing loss on your record right before you hit these games, maybe that's what they need. Is that what they need?
I guess so. I don't know how many kicks in the pants this team needs. I mean, they're just a week and a half removed from getting a coach fired. And they're rolling right along and they're already getting complacent. I don't know. I mean, if you're a good team, you shouldn't need a kick in the pants every 5 games or a wake up call every 5 games. So,
okay, let me rephrase this. Is this the new kick in the pants under Woodcroft and a new system and a successful 5 games where they maybe lapsed on the first time that they've had him as their coach and they didn't play maybe his way? And it dawns on them, hopefully, that yeah, if we slack here, this could get ugly.
I think that's a very good way to look at it. Yeah, yep. That's well put. I think that's what it is. It shows that Woodcroft has done brilliant work with his team so far. I think he's a phenomenal coach and they can achieve great things under him if everything goes accordingly. But this just shows that there still are a lot of warts with this team that having Woodcroft behind the bench can't solve. And just the fact that you won 5 straight games doesn't mean what doesn't stink, right? So I think so. And to what Julian was saying, I think more than anything, I know you don't want to make excuses, but 5 games in 7 nights, that is probably more than anything bound to happen. So
yeah, it's a lot of hockey. Colton, how much do we give credit to Minnesota? The one thing I did notice was a lot of like really quick top of the blue line plays, like in our own zone, trying to make a play at the very top and then getting blocked and they were going the other way. And there's not much you can do once you're stuck in that position because all your defensemen are too deep. How much credit do we give to Minnesota? How much credit should we say, okay, well, the Oilers messed this one up?
I think it's a bit of both. Like these guys said, 5 games in 7 days for the Oilers, and I think 8 and 13 too. So they played a ton of hockey lately. But Minnesota is like you said, they're a really good team. I think they haven't really gotten a lot of credit this year for just how good they are. I think once the playoffs roll up, they could really surprise some teams. So I think it's more fatigue and just the fact that they played a really good team. So I'm not too worried about it. I think just tiredness played a lot into it, but I expect them to turn it around.
Do you, Colton, blame or have any concern about the goaltending? Because I don't know that you could fault Koskinen and Smith. I wouldn't say it was their best performances, but man, like the first 3 goals that Minnesota scored, I mean, what are you supposed to do if you're Mike Smith in that situation? So is there any concern with the goaltending at this point? Or is it just like, what are you going to do if you're either one of those 2 guys?
I mean, I think you'd like your goalie to maybe be able to come up with a big save, but at the same time, like you said, it wasn't like any of them, especially on Smith for a week. I think Koskinen had that one stinker, but the game was already done by then. But no, I'm not worried about it. Again, I just chalk it up to a tired team, and I think they'll come out with a much better effort against Tampa.
Brian, do you give any credit to the Oilers' unwillingness to throw the towel in? Because I didn't see them quitting. I just didn't see them playing a very good hockey game. But they seemed to, like, they got 3 goals when it was all said and done. So it could have been much, much worse based on how the game started. 7-3 is not pretty, but, do we give any credit to a team here that doesn't seem to throw it in?
Well, it's funny you say that because when it got to 4-0, when they got that first goal back to make it 4-1, like I honestly felt that this game wasn't necessarily over.
Yeah.
And that was just because of the jam they were showing. So yeah, I agree. And I don't think they've quit on a ton of games this year. But certainly that was encouraging to see. That I think they have rallied so often from, they get down all the time. They I think they got like 6 or 7 comebacks from 2-goal deficits this season. That they have that sense of belief, and I think that plays a large part of it. So yeah, I think that was a good sign. Very good sign.
I think the 5-1 goal was the dagger for them because they had tons of time left in that hockey game to get some of those goals back and just slowly work their way down. Like when it's 3-0 at the end of whatever it was, and you're like, man, there's a lot of hockey. What was it, like 5 minutes in or something crazy like that? So there was tons of hockey that they could still play, right? So 3-0, they say 3 goals is the worst lead in hockey. When you have that much time, it's whatever. 4-1, a little whatever. 5-1 was kind of the day. Is that the point, Julian, where it's kind of like, you know what, maybe whatever. I have a question for you, actually. Connor McDavid, so he's in that game. It looks like he tweaks something, falls awkwardly into the boards, comes back out and plays right away. What do you do in that situation? You're down. I don't know what they were down at that time. Do you keep playing McDavid? Do you go, man, maybe we should just say this game's is toast. It's in the bag. Let's just move on. We'll sit McDavid for a while. What would you have done in that situation?
I think it was more important for Woodcroft to kind of like, I think McDavid kind of set the tone there to say, like, I'm not quitting just because we're losing this bad or whatever the score was at the time. I think it was 5-1 or something like that. But regardless, I think it's better to set the precedent that you're not going to quit unless you're actually unable to play. Like, it's a different story if it was something that you had to go to check out in the locker room and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't blame him. I think it was McDavid's call at the end, but I think it was a good precedent to set in terms of the culture in the room and to continue kind of proving to everybody that, we're here and we mean business. They showed some resiliency in that game. And I just think that they had to start cheating in order to look for offense. So it kind of led into some turnovers that they probably wouldn't have given up some more goals too. So it was kind of snowballing on top of that. Overall, I mean, like we said, that game's going to happen. Minnesota's a good team. And I think, like you said, Jim, a lot of the plays, they were dancing along the blue line. I think against speedy teams like Minnesota, where they're going to pick your pocket and go the other way, you can't be making those mistakes. So they got to be aware of that. And, I think it's a flush it game and you kind of move on and get ready for the next 3 you have ahead.
Yeah, the flush of game is a good way to describe that one. You can hopefully put it out of your mind and go, okay, let's remember that this hurt, but let's also go, this isn't normal for us. We're a better team than this, so we should be okay. I was very pleasantly relieved when McDavid sort of falls down awkward. Doesn't look like much of a play, but he gets up and I don't know if
he was wincing for sure.
But he's like, oh, my knee. You could just see him, the mouth that his knee was bugging him. But he didn't sit out for, I think maybe he missed one shift, but he came back, right? So that was good. I mean, like that would have been the takeaway for me going, oh my gosh, could you imagine? Who cares if we lose 7-1? If you lose McDavid, then what? You just lost Puljujärvi, which is where I want to take the conversation next. Cool. And how much of a loss did Puljujärvi play here? Because I wrote an article saying, I think this is going to have a ripple effect on the rest of the roster because he's kind of your top 6 guy. He's cemented in that role. At this point, he's with your top line. Now you got to move Yamamoto up. You're moving other people. Tyler Benson gets a little look, and we'll talk about him in a minute. But like, how much of a factor did not having Puljujärvi in the lineup play on this team? How much of a loss in general is it that he's not there?
Yeah, I think it played a factor, and it's a huge loss. Just we were talking about it. The team was really starting to play better. Those lines were starting to mesh, and he was starting to play better again himself. He got put back with McDavid. And I think just even when he wasn't scoring, he still does a lot of little things right that maybe some people don't notice, but just defensively and everything. And so I think that's a big loss for him. And hopefully he's able to come back sooner and later. I know they had said about 3 to 4 weeks, but yeah, hopefully it's not any longer than that because they could really use him.
Brian, do they have to ride this out or can they try to do something? Would you try to do something if you're Ken Holland and you don't have him? I heard whispers and wrote an article today that they might be on a Dominic Kubalik out of Chicago. Like, do you do that sort of thing, knowing you don't have Puljujärvi for another 3 weeks or so, or do you just sort of ride it out and go, we just got to find the depth internally?
I think you ride out. Yeah, that's it. Find the depth internally. There's a couple dudes down in Bakersfield right now that I wouldn't mind seeing get a look. I'm not sure how you necessarily would integrate them into this lineup. It may take a bit of shifting around, which as I think it through, as I'm saying this myself, I don't know if I do that because I do like, the line combinations that we've seen primarily since Woodcroft has taken over, I like it. And I like the lineup consistency and I like that they've been gelling and you don't want them to mess with that too much. And I know if you were looking at, say, injecting this lineup with someone with like, say, Seth Griffith, Cooper Marody, I don't know if I go to Holloway right now, but any of these guys would probably mean that you have to shuffle the lineups around otherwise to make this work. So it's a tough one. But I don't panic over losing him for 3 or 4 weeks. I know that's a lot of games in this condensed schedule, but still, I think they can ride it out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do because they're gonna have to do something. I don't know if Perlini's the guy you plop in there, or you look at Tyler Benson, or you whatever. But you are right. If you're bringing in Marody, or you're bringing in Griffin, you're bringing in Holloway, you're bringing in, any of those guys. They're not top 6 guys for you on this team right now. So everything has to shift down. And we, like Golden said, we loved the lineup structure, right? Like everybody was sort of where they should have been. You might have had one too many guys in a power play, but it was making for a nice second power play unit. Now you don't really kind of, I don't know. It's a little weird.
Yeah. And just to tack on there, like, I'm glad you brought up Perlini because of anyone that they could just plug in, he's probably the most natural guy to fit into that first line role, if you will. We saw him up there for a couple games earlier. I thought he did well. So that might be the answer right there. I don't think he hasn't played yet since Woodcroft's taken over, has he?
He played one game, but he only played like just over 3 minutes. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Julian. If you thought that Perlini could get hot, like, is he the guy? Because he was the leading scorer in preseason. I know that we don't assume because we've seen that before with what was it, Ty Ratty did it and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't necessarily equate to a huge regular season, but he has the ability when playing with the right people to pop a few goals. And if that's what you need for a week or two, is he the guy?
Well, yeah, that's the perfect thing. You just need a guy to plug in and be a way to give you a couple goals here and there, right? Sprinkle them in. I think he's the obvious choice, but I just don't like the way Woodcroft is kind of running down to 11 forwards. And then you're barely playing the ones you have on the bottom line, like, to me, if you're going to have that dynamic, you should be rotating those wingers in almost where they're playing 10 minutes a game, like, and using those guys to see which one's going to fit the best, and whichever one's going that game, play them, ride them. And I think that's kind of what's missing is the in-game flow and getting guys in, because if a guy's sitting if I'm Perlini and I'm sitting only playing 3 minutes a game, how am I supposed to get anything going? you're on there for a 30-second shift. Next thing you know, you're off for 10, and then you go back out there for another 30. How am I supposed to, you know what I mean? So I don't like that aspect of it, but I think Perlini is the right fit in order to kind of give them that little leeway while Puljujärvi is coming back. Cause I think they need to use their assets to go get other positions at the deadline rather than using it on another forward right now. So, you're kind of handcuffed there. So the internal depth is going to have to play a role here. And I think Yamamoto's done a good job on that top line. If that's where he's going to stick, and McLeod has been really good with Draisaitl. I like that he's getting more minutes, and it's been increasing ever since. Woodcroft's been in the head coaching position. So guys like that are just going to have to step up and carry the load until they get some help back.
I am with you that the 3 minutes by Devin Shore and then Perlini and then whomever else is not great, but I will, in defense of Jay Woodcroft, say that there's only one player he's doing it to per game, right? Tippett used to do it to everybody in that bottom six, and that would drive people crazy because it was like McDavid playing 24 minutes a game and Draisaitl playing 26 minutes, which is way too much, right? Like, so at least he's only doing it to one person. Colton, I'll ask you this though. How much do you think this 11-7, like Julian mentioned it, when you're running 11 forwards and you're doing that to a guy, then it's really problematic. Do you think this continues? Do you think they keep running the 11-7, especially after the last game where there were some defensive breakdowns at their own blue line? Do you run the 11-7 and have 7 guys, or do you got to go to the 12 forwards?
I mean, I think Woodcroft seems pretty comfortable doing it, obviously. I think you had mentioned last podcast that he was kind of known for it in the minors as well. I do question over time if, like, just basically playing 10 forwards, because like we said, the one guy's getting like 2-3 minutes. If you kind of risk maybe tiring your guys out a bit, but at the same time, then it's kind of the opposite with Tippett, where at least McDavid and Draisaitl are getting less. So I think he seems pretty comfortable with that, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of what he continues to do throughout the remainder of the season. And obviously, he could change that every now and again, depending on wins and losses, but I think that might be kind of the most common structure we see moving forward.
Brian, I'll ask you about Dylan Holloway because you brought him up. Why should the Oilers not bring him up? You said you didn't think that he would be a good fit there. Is that just an experience? Is that because he started out really strong and has tailed off a little bit in Bakersfield? Like, what would be your hesitation in bringing him up? Because he seems on paper like a perfect fit in that top 6.
Yeah, I think he has kind of struggled a little bit. I don't think he's ready. Yeah, plain and simple. I just don't think he's ready. And I know that may seem, I know he's kind of been the guy we've been looking to. We know he's coming. We know he's coming. When he gets here, he's just going to be a guy with such tremendous potential. And I still believe all that, but I don't think he's ready right now. I think he's had some tough games recently in Bakersfield. And we've talked about this before, is not only is it bringing up a guy who can't help you, but it's a detriment to the team in that respect. It's also a detriment to the individual, maybe, to put him in a situation where that's expected of him. That's a lot of pressure to put on him. And you don't want to see another, a setback along the lines of what they did with Puljujärvi a few years ago, putting him in a situation where he's basically set up to fail.
Yeah, Yamamoto did really well, but he had been down there for a while, right?
Exactly.
Like, he comes up, plays 19 games.
He was ready.
Yeah, and plays like a house on fire when he gets in there for 19 games, right? I think that's the situation you want Holloway to be in, where he's been there, he's itching, he's ready, he's scored repeatedly at the AHL level, and he's just looking for that window to go in there and just whatever. Like Yamamoto did in those 19 games, what he's not really done since, which was shoot like crazy. Like, he just went in there and he shot everything at the net, and like stuff went in a lot, right? So I think that's what you need from Holloway, is a guy who's got the confidence to come in here and go, this is my 19 games. Let's like make it. I agree with you. I don't know if it's the season. Colton, what do you think about the Tyler Benson goal? Obviously his first NHL goal. How much of a factor can he play? Is this one of those things where it's like, yeah, he got the first goal, but it might be the only goal we see from him this season? Or is this the kind of thing where he could get rolling here? Because he's been a perennial legitimate scorer at every other level he's ever played. So,
yeah, I mean, I was happy for him to see him get the goal. And I think, like, to his credit, he's trying to do anything he can. Like, he's bringing out more of a physical edge you've seen, especially recently. I don't know. You guys might disagree. I don't think he skates well enough. I don't know. I'm not as high on him as some other players on the Oilers, or even prospects that I think could come up. Like, I hope he heats up. I don't know if I see it coming from him.
Would you trade him? If he becomes a piece you can move here at the trade deadline, would you move him?
I mean, I guess it depends what's coming back. Like, I don't think you're going to get much at all for just him. Like, if it's part of a package where they're just trying to move out contracts, then I wouldn't have a problem with them moving him. Like I said, I don't see much potential there. But at the same time, if they're just moving him for the sake of moving him, you're not going to get anything of value back. So you might as well hold on to him and see if he can still blossom out more.
Julian, did you catch when he shoved the guy? Who did he push after he scored?
It was Kaprizov, yeah.
Oh my gosh. What did you make of that? I laughed.
That was pretty funny. That was pretty funny. I think he was just so hyped up. He's like, everybody get out of my way. I just want to celebrate this goal. Because he's been waiting a long time for that one. So it was good to see. I was happy for him. Unfortunately, he kind of sparked the team a bit there. I think they played really well after that goal, and they were actually pressing to get another one back to make it a 1-goal game. It was 3-1. That goal, I think, made it 3-1 or 4-1 maybe at that time. But they were really pressing after that goal. So I think it gave him some sort of legs. But I mean, if you're not going to use him, like, I think if you're not going to promote him and maybe give him an opportunity in the top 6, if you don't think he's ready or whatnot, then maybe, you give him a little bit of an extended role on the third line and move someone like Fogle back up to play with McDavid, because, he can kind of manage that already. But I mean, I'm on board with moving him as long as you can, if he's part of a package to get something back. I think it's more beneficial to have if you're not going to use him in a role where he's going to be able to succeed, then maybe it's better for the player to be given that opportunity elsewhere, while also helping the team get some assets back and something that can help them or they can utilize, at least for now.
Okay, I'm going to go around in a circle, and I'm going to ask you guys each, you have like 10, 15 seconds to let me know what you think. Who starts? After the way that game went, Mike Smith, Mikko Koskinen, neither looked wonderful, but neither looked terrible. Who do you put in goal for your first game? Colton, who are you going with?
Mike Smith. I think they still all believe he's the number one guy there, so I think they go back to him.
Brian, what about you?
Is it who will they put in or who should they put in?
Okay, you take whatever approach you want.
They will put in Smith.
You don't think they should?
Is your should a different answer?
My should is undecided.
Your should is Stuart Skinner, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't disagree with you, although it's a little tricky to do that now when you got both guys healthy. Julian, what would you do?
Yeah, I'm going back to Smith. I think you flushed that game, and you can't hang that one on him because, both goalies kind of suffered the same fate there. So go back to Smith. I think that's what Holland wants anyway at the end of the day.
I think if there's a guy who can flush that game, it's Mike Smith.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Koskinen can. Maybe he can. Maybe I'd be pleasantly surprised that he could chalk that one off. But we've seen so far his track record tends to be when he doesn't have the game he wants to have, even if it isn't necessarily his fault, it snowballs on him, right? So maybe you need Mike Smith in there because he doesn't care. He can come out and wander all over the zone and let in the stupidest goal in the world and then make like 59 saves in a row. Like, that's Mike Smith, right? Mentally, he's on a different level than Mikko Koskinen. So I think if you want a guy to help get the team back from a 7-3 loss, it's probably Mike Smith. All right, final segment of the night. Let's do the 1+1 or whatever you've been calling it.
+1, -1.
+1, -1. There you go. I'll start with you. Do you have it's probably easy to point to a -1 this week, but do you have a +1 or -1?
We're gonna stay optimistic. I'm gonna go with Zach Hyman. He's been on a really hot streak right now, and I think that's key in having other players step up when players are absent. I think he has I think it was 9 points in 11 games or 7 points in 9 games or something like that, or the other way around, 9 points in 7 games. I think it was. So he's been playing really well since he's been moved back to that top line. I think, that's the energy you need. So I'm going to give mine to him, but I'm also going to give a +1 to Gene Principe for that whole broadcast haircut that was going on. I thought that was pretty funny, and kudos to the guy who put the hair on his upper lip there and made a mustache out of it.
Yeah, not kudos to that guy. That was disgusting.
That was disgusting.
That was the worst. That's like taking somebody's gum off the railing and then putting it in your mouth. That was bad. Although I will give Gene Principe credit for doing all that. To be honest with you, when he started growing his hair out, I had no idea he was even doing that. So I thought, why is he going like that? And then it makes a lot of sense. So you do that. Brian, what about you? +1, -1. What do you got?
Yeah, I'll echo the shout out to Gino too, but I'm going to go with Tyler Benson. Julian articulated. I mean, I don't think, as Colton was saying, I don't think this starts the floodgates are not going to open for him. I think we know what he is at this level, but I was so thrilled to see him get that goal and his celebration, whatever you want to call that. That was one of the best reactions.
Oh, that was pretty good.
You'll ever see. So yeah, big +1 to Tyler Benson.
There you go. Colton, what about you? You got a +1, -1, or both?
I'll give a +1 to Evander Kane. I think just coming in, everyone knew just like the skill that what he was capable of doing, and so far he's really done that. And I think that 5-game win streak and just how they played lately, a lot of that can be credited to just having another forward that can put up offense. So I think so far that's been a really good addition for them.
Yeah, no, I like that. That was what I was going to go with, sure. Like, because he's been so steady, but in many ways, like you don't notice it, but he's like leading the team in hits since he got here.
Hits. He's been improved on the power play too.
Yeah, and he's scoring in different ways. Like he's scoring from up high. He's tipping pucks. He's doing all sorts, and he's taking the craziest shots, but they're like good shots. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't think those rapid fire shots that come out of nowhere would do much, but they do. They handcuff a goalie, and
he's the Steph Curry of the Edmonton Oilers.
More Oilers need to do what he's doing. Like just fire the puck, right? Get it on net, which is pretty good. All right, I'm gonna go with a -1 then, since I was thinking about Kane, but I mentioned it before, and I was a little concerned about it, but I was giving him credit, thinking, you know what, he'll figure it out. Although it's gone downhill a little. Evan Bouchard has not been wonderful. He's made a lot of key mistakes. And I don't know if it's getting in his head that maybe he's making too many mistakes. And of course, that makes things worse when you do that. But he's making bad choices. He's making iffy turnovers. He's giving things like he's just struggling a little bit. And I have all the time in the world for him because I think he's going to figure it out and he's going to be super solid and he's a huge part of this team. But it's not pretty. It hasn't been pretty for about 3 or 4 games. And he's not been able to make up for it with his offense, which is kind of what you hope would happen when this happens to him, right? Is that, okay, you've made that error, but you're so dangerous on this end that, you can kind of make up for it. So I'm a little concerned with that. Brian, you look like...
Yeah, I got to give you a follow-up on this one, Jim, because under Woodcroft, his minutes have come down significantly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that a good or a bad thing? And is that part of why this is happening?
Well, I think the system change is kind of an adjustment period for him, which is weird because he played under Woodcroft, I think, in the minors too, right? So
but remember, he didn't spend last year in the AHL.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So I mean,
which brings back into play too.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that kind of has something to do with it. It seems like he's like adjusting again. He's trying to learn new things, and then he's getting caught in the wrong spot on the wrong time, and it kind of just like again.
Yeah, he's getting caught. That's the deal.
Yeah,
he's
getting
caught, right?
Yeah.
He's just getting.
You can tell flat-footed, and then you're chasing, right? So I think it's an adjustment period, but I mean, hopefully he can get out of it.
And I will give a quick +1 to Jay Woodcroft because I do like his response after the 7-3 loss. He immediately took it off the goalies. He said this was not on either one of those two guys, but he didn't throw the other team. He didn't throw them under the bus either, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so I think there's outside of his power stance, which I absolutely 100% love. He's saying the right things. So he would have loved to go 6-0. He would have loved to set the record for the most wins as the first time head coach with the Edmonton Oilers. It didn't happen, but he's saying the right things, and I think that's huge. Anybody else want to add anything to their +1, -1 before we roll things off?
No, I just want to say like I think hopefully they can kind of keep this rolling with a tough schedule ahead. I mean, they've kind of had it pretty well off right now, so hopefully they can just get rid of that game, and it's nice to see at least breath of fresh air, getting some wins under their belt and back into a playoff spot.
Who are they playing first here? Tampa?
Yeah.
This is the first game. Okay,
Tampa.
So let's quickly do it. Let's go through and predict winners and losers for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Colton, who you got?
I'll say Edmonton wins. I think they'll come back with a strong bounce back effort. I'll say 5-2 Edmonton.
Brian, what about you?
5-4 Bolts in overtime. Smith gives up a goal in the first 3 minutes.
Ooh, bold.
That's detailed.
It was detailed.
That's really specific. That's good. Julian, what about you?
I'm going to say I think the Oilers are going to bounce back again as well, just after a bad game all in general. So I'm going to say 4-3 Oilers, and I'm going to say Evander Kane with 2 goals.
I'm going to probably say the Oilers have a great game, but maybe don't win because Tampa's so strong. But I'll take a loser point here. I'll take a Bettman point. If they can get it in overtime, even if they lose the game, I think it sets them on the right tone for the rest of the road trip with the confidence they can win these games, right? And I think that's maybe the biggest takeaway from the first game is just the ability. If they don't get blown out or creamed, then they're going to go into the rest of the games and go, you know what? We got a shot.
We're here.
Right. And so that's probably the most important thing for me anyway. So I'll say the Oilers lose, but it'll be in overtime and it'll be just on the back of a strong game. So hopefully that's what happens. But winning would be better. That'd be awesome. All right, guys, that's it for this week. We're going to thank you for joining us. For Colton, Brian, and Julian, my name is Jim Parsons with the Hockey Writers. Thank you. It's another edition of Oilers Overtime. just a quick reminder, if you want to check out the morningskate.io newsletter, you can do that. Sign up for that. It's kind of your morning hit, your coffee, so to speak, of NHL news and rumors and talk and discussion. So feel free to sign up for that. Everything else you can find on the Hockey Writers, and these guys are all doing really great work. All right, guys. Thank you for another edition of THW Oilers Overtime. We'll see you next week.